Breaking news at 4 o'clock, the jury is in. Another not guilty verdict for an officer charged in the death of Elijah McClain. A former Loveland police officer was trusted to serve his community. Now he's facing charges for kidnapping and child sex abuse.
This is my worst nightmare.
7 years after a mother of 4 was murdered on a train to Denver, police have arrested a suspect. We're hearing from her family, turning their pain to awareness for others.
There's all these resources out there. Utilize them, please. Because I don't want to see another person like what happened to my sister.
A job and opportunity to start a new life. We'll show you how generous Coloradans are helping new migrants get settled. 4 o'clock at 9 News starts now. We start this Monday with the breaking news at 4 o'clock. Another acquittal in the death of Elijah McClain.
2 of the 3 Aurora police officers have been acquitted of charges related in the case. 9 News reporter Kevin Bond was in the courtroom as the verdict came in this afternoon for Nathan Woodard. Kevin?
Tom and Kim, this jury deliberated for about 9 hours over 2 days before reaching this verdict. Officer Woodyard had faced a single count of reckless manslaughter, and the jury also had the option of convicting him of a lesser count, criminally negligent homicide. In the end, they acquitted him of both charges. Woodyard was the first officer to make contact with Elijah McClain on that night in August 2019. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser took this case to a statewide grand jury and was in court sitting with McClain's mother, Shanine, when the verdict was read. Afterward, he said he stood by the decision to take these cases to trial.
We must all do what we can to stop the unlawful and unnecessary use of force that can result in people dying at the hands of law enforcement. As I've said before, only then will we have true justice and accountability.
Now, this was the second of 3 trials for first responders in this case. There are 2 paramedics who were also indicted by that statewide grand jury. They are scheduled to go on trial later this month. Tom and Kim?
All right, Kevin, we'll have much more from the courtroom coming up in just a bit. But as Kevin was alluding to, also in the courtroom today, of course, as that verdict was being read, the family of Elijah McClain, including Elijah's mother, Shanine.
And 9 News anchor Alexander Lewis joins us with more on that. Alex, we want to hear more about what she had to say.
Hey guys, it was a tough day. I don't know how else to characterize it other than that. Right before the verdict was read, I spoke to Shanine and just kind of asked her, what is her expectation as we go and file into the courtroom? She said she had no expectations. She was incredibly disappointed with the split verdict of Rodema and Rosenblatt, and she wanted to save herself that level of heartache today. So she said she went in there not hoping for anything, having no expectations, but she was still incredibly heartbroken when Nathan Woodyard was acquitted. There's been this sense of a bit of accountability, right? These officers had their day in court, whether they were acquitted or not. It's some level of accountability when it comes to police violence. But if you ask Elijah McClain's mother, Shanine, this is far from that.
But it's to be expected because of how the first trial went. This is their pattern, this is their practice, and they are sticking to the way that they do things.
Mm-hmm. Was this what you expected?
Yes.
You were super emotional in the courtroom where you even needed to take a moment, and you sat down, you stayed in the courtroom for a little longer. What was that about?
Because I wanted to hit somebody. I wanted to kick something. I wanted to take out my vengeance on the ones that murdered my son, because there is no accountability within the justice system, and today proves it once again.
And of course, Shanine did not do any of those things. She's always remained so graceful and poised under these circumstances. But I do want to talk about that moment, because after the verdict was read, she kind of heaved over in emotion. And Phil Weiser, who was sitting right next to her, hand in hand during this this verdict being read, and the prosecutors immediately walked over and they said, "Shanine, what do you want to do?" And she's like, "I just need to sit here for a second." And she sat in that first row of the courtroom for another 10, 15 minutes or so, paralyzed with emotion, before she could stand up and collect herself and walk out of the courtroom and face all of the cameras and the reporters. But this is a very, very, very hard day for this mother. And she says there's another trial set to go after Thanksgiving, and she'll be there ready again to hear whatever comes her way.
So many of us have followed this case, but she's lived this case for 4 years.
Yeah,
4
and
years.
that testimony, Alex, again and again about Elijah and how he died. It's just so difficult, and I'm sure that at this point now she realizes that it seems like, you know, the officers say it was the paramedics. The paramedics are probably going to say it was the officers as far as the attorneys talk about this case.
That's such a good point, because we hear the one expert after another squarely blame Elijah's death on the paramedics. So what are the paramedics going to do? Probably flip that blame. But it seems like they have a harder road ahead of them as far as the other three officers. But I can't even describe to you guys how emotional it has been covering these trials, sitting inside of this courtroom and having to hear this body camera video over and over and over again. So just imagine what it's like for Elijah's mom.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. But she's doing this for her son. What she has done for him from the beginning, just to let us know about Elijah, has been so important.
Incredibly so, and something she mentioned to me today, she's probably going to be mad at me for saying this, but I'm trying to, convince her that this is a good idea. She said she's feeling like the court system isn't really working for her, but she does want to be an advocate when it comes to police violence, specifically against young black men in America. And she's actually thinking about running for office, that maybe that could be her next step and she could create change with policy. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, sadly, in Colorado, that path that Rhonda Fields took when her son was murdered in City Park is one we've seen before. Alex, we'll have more coming up at 5 o'clock. Thanks for joining us.
This afternoon, we are hearing from Aurora's police chief, Art Aceveda. He released a statement saying, "We respect the verdict handed down by the jury and thank the members of the jury for their thoughtful deliberation and service. Due to the additional pending trial, the Aurora Police Department is precluded from further comment at this time." Woodard was the last of the 3 Aurora officers to go on trial in Elijah McClain's death, and he is the second to be acquitted of all charges. The previous trial of Randy Rodema and Jason Rosenblatt ended with a split verdict. The jury found Rosenblatt not guilty on all charges, but found Rodema guilty of criminally negligent homicide and third-degree assault. Up next is the trial of the 2 paramedics in the case. It is scheduled to begin November 27th.
And with the verdict, reaction is coming in. It'll be coming in throughout the evening, and you can stay up to date by downloading the 9 News app, which you can download pretty much anywhere to follow along. A Loveland police officer arrested this morning on charges that he sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl while on duty this summer.
Dylan Miller faces 6 charges tied to that assault. Loveland PD fired him this morning after his arrest. 9 News reporter Steve Steger is live outside Loveland PD tonight. And Steve, these are serious charges.
Kim, they are charges stemming from an investigation that Loveland Police says began here on October 23rd when that 15-year-old victim and her family came forward to Loveland PD, who then handed this investigation over to the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. The 15-year-old told investigators that she first met Dylan Miller during a traffic stop days before this alleged sexual assault. Now, then one night at North Lake Park, Miller approached the victim and someone else she was with. This all happened back in July, only months into the job for Miller, who started on patrol here in Loveland in October of last year. Larimer County Sheriff John Fayen said Miller approached the victim and this other person she was with because they were in the park after hours, and then police say he got the victim alone.
Miller informed the individual with the victim to leave, and he did so. Meantime, he was on duty and in uniform, drove up in his marked car and contacted them and instructed her to walk with him to a secluded area of the park. It was at this location that he sexually assaulted her.
So among the charges that Miller faces here, kidnapping, sexual assault on a child from a person in a position of trust, and official misconduct, among others. Investigators here at Loveland PD said there were no previous complaints about Dylan Miller in his time here. Before he worked here, he was a police officer in Durango. I spoke to the Durango police chief this afternoon, who told me they saw no similar allegations there during their time. All of the investigators are asking anyone who had contact with Officer Dylan Miller in any of his positions, either in Durango or here in Loveland, and had similar contact like this to come forward and let the police know about it.
Yeah, stories like this certainly reverberate in communities and throughout law enforcement as well, Steve. Thanks. Westminster police say the suspect that they were searching for in yesterday's deadly shooting is now in custody. That shooting happened just before 10 a.m. on West Cliff Parkway near Highway 36. Police said the suspect left in a car, which they then found around 62nd and Estes in Arvada. That's when they put a shelter-in-place order in that area while police investigated. They ultimately lifted that because the suspect was not there. Now police say that 22-year-old Gilbert Alexis Gomez Arias turned himself in around 11 o'clock last night into the Pueblo County Sheriff's Department. Now he faces 1 count of first-degree murder, felony menacing.
7 years after a woman was found dead on an Amtrak train at Union Station, an arrest has been made. Authorities charge Angelo Mantich with first-degree murder for the death of his girlfriend, 28-year-old Marina Placenia. 9 News reporter Jaleesa Rosari spoke to Placenia's brother, who hopes this is one step closer to justice.
Starting over requires a first step. Union Station was where Marina Placencia planned to make that move. A fresh start, a new dream that never made it off the train.
This is my worst nightmare.
Christopher Medina remembers that day in 2016, the day his little sister Marina was supposed to move back to Denver from Wisconsin with her 4 children. Her family waited at Union Station for her arrival.
My mother called me and told me they were resuscitating my sister to get down to Union Station. I screamed at the top of my lungs and I ran to my mother. And I jumped in her arms and we both fell right there and just held each other and cried on the platform.
Arrest documents say Marina's boyfriend, Angelo Mantich, alerted staff when he couldn't wake Marina up. She was dead. An investigator reported bruises all over her body. And as the family left, a sibling said, quote, "Look into Angelo because he is abusive." Christopher says,
Yep.
that was him talking to police.
And I was trying to video chat her sometimes and she wouldn't do it ever because she was always bruised.
According to arrest documents, authorities interviewed multiple people who said they previously witnessed Angelo hit Marina multiple times, as recent as the night before they left for Denver. Still, an autopsy concluded her death as undetermined until 2023. Investigators hired a medical expert that reported Marina's injuries were a result of blunt force trauma and suffocation and ruled her death a homicide. Angelo was later arrested.
Amazement, shock.
Marina may have never gotten that fresh start,
I will always love you, sister.
but Christopher hopes others will.
Get help, because I don't want to see another person like what happened to my sister.
The DA's office says in addition to DPD, the Racine, Wisconsin Police Department, as well as Amtrak PD, helped out with this lengthy investigation. Chris says Marina's kids are doing okay. He says the family makes every effort to share fond memories about Marina to them.
Yeah, good for him. A brother just feels, I think, responsibility to take care of a sister.
Especially a little sister, right? You know, he says she was his best friend and he took care of her as much as he could. And, you know, he is breathing a sigh of relief today with this recent action.
Yeah, absolutely. All these years later. Thanks, Jaleesa. Let's take a live look outside. Whew, we warmed up again this afternoon, getting in the 70s after yesterday.
Yeah, a little more fall weather that's this warm is going to stick around until the changes come. Kathy knows all about it. She joins us now. Kathy,
hi guys.
Got some more warm weather.
I know. Yesterday, you remember, almost 80, a record high of 78. We're not quite there today, but mid-70s in November is about 20 degrees warmer than average. And the blue sky out there, everybody's loving that, still adjusting to daylight saving time coming to an end and back to standard time. The mountains are looking at some heavy snow starting Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Today, temperatures comfortable. Still 62 in Eagle, 52 in Steamboat, 70 in downtown Denver, 73 for Lamar, and 70 in Grand Junction. The wind has been a factor today. Gusty downsloping winds to 30 and 40 miles per hour over some of the higher passes, but the warm downsloping wind is also pushing temperatures above average. The storm that we're tracking is still well to the north and west of us, moving on shore in the Pacific Northwest. It'll be another day or two before it gets here. Most of the precip and energy will stay north of Colorado, but we will get to see some snow in the mountains starting Tuesday night into Wednesday, and then a rain-snow mix here in Denver Wednesday night into Thursday. It's a fast-moving system, not terribly impactful, and not as much moisture as we need, but we'll take it. In the meantime, a beautiful evening tonight with temperatures in the 60s, sun setting so much earlier now. So we have 70s to start the week, colder weather coming, and snow.